mic, camera, action.
Stop, you're scaring me.
Scaring you? You're not scared. You don't know shit about being scared, little girl. Not yet. You want scared? You want scared? Have a look behind you. Have a look. Yeah, how about that, huh? Look again, goddammit.
No.
Go ahead, look
No.
again.
I think I want you to stop and let me out.
You think? Or do you know? Huh? Go ahead and have a look. You better look.
No.
Huh? You don't want to look?
No.
What's your goddamn problem?
Okay. If you stop, I'll look.
You want it to stop.
Stop it!
Yeah.
Ow!
Come on,
Ow!
yeah, have a look at that.
Ow!
Have a look at that.
Ow!
Look at that. How about that?
Stop!
Who's that? Who's that? Huh?
Oh, God.
Yeah, of course you gotta throw in a little something extra. Just let them know it ain't Saturday morning cartoons, if you know what I mean.
What's gonna happen to me?
You think I give a goddamn what happens to you?
Are you letting me go?
You figured out it's your goddamn life.
I don't understand.
Well, welcome to the real world.
All right. Welcome back to the Filmography, the show dedicated to watching every credited film from an actor's complete back catalogue, from past debut through to present day, in chronological order. Each episode, I'm joined by an esteemed guest to watch and discuss the next entry from the Focus Filmography. I consider how it ranks amidst their career, and whether we can trace any typecasting trends or topic traits or theatrical tics. Today's guest is the self-proclaimed Sultan of Shit, Spider-Dan. Today's film is Kim Henkel's Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation from 1994. We watch, you listen, and if you're psychotic in this case, hopefully watch along too. Dan, thank you so much for coming on early doors again. You were my first guest for season 1, early on for season 2, and once again you're taking one for the team.
Oh, I think I'll be taking a few more as we go down. But to quote Matthew McConaughey in this, to quote the film, "Welcome to my world."
Absolutely. I mean, hey, we even get an all right in this as well. Like he brings it with him.
Which that's the following line. That's the preceding line to that line. So yeah, it's the catchphrase is in there. It's part of him. This is quite a big deal for him. It comes up in like interviews a lot, and not only that, Renée Zellweger talks about it a lot. There's a film she did as well where she plays an actress, and she's like, I don't know the film itself, but she plays an actress who was in a horror film, and it must be the same company as Tex, who own the rights to Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation, because they use clips from that film within. Oh, the film,
nice, right? Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of cool. So they're both fairly fond of the experience, but
yeah.
We'll talk about the watching experience, I'm sure.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way. Like they're both, as you said, they're more than happy to talk about it. And it's really interesting because it's like third time lucky. Renée Zellweger had been cut out of 2 of McConaughey's earlier movies. And considering this is only film number 4, she was really unlucky, but she was cut out of Dazed and she was cut out of My Boyfriend's Back. So they've been destined to work together from the start of their careers, really.
Yes, they were. Well, they definitely collide in this one in so many ways and so many times. Whatever your thoughts on the film are, these guys are bringing their A game to this very kind of low budget genre effort, I would say.
They're bringing a game, did you say? Sorry? Well, they're bringing
a game. I brought Monopoly. It's family fun time. Get round the dining room table with all your corpses. Let's have a fight.
Where you put the emphasis is so important in that sentence.
Bringing that
game.
A game of some form. Yes. But it's it's a wild one. This one, I think I've talked about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre films before, and I've covered comics and stuff. And I was just saying to you, I finally watched all of them by kind of last year, and this was one of the final ones I watched. And it's definitely probably one of the wildest in a weird set of films.
Mm-hmm.
I think this might be the weirdest one, which is saying something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I've watched it. I've seen the first one, as most people who are interested in movies have, because it's considered a milestone in horror filmmaking. I've seen the remake. I'm not sure I've seen any others. I think that's probably it. And now I've seen this, and I'm glad I have, because it's trying to do something. And you listen to people talk about movies, and you listen to podcasts of people talking about movies. And often and I know you feel the same. Boring movies, middle of the road movies are kind of the worst sometimes. Those ones that play it safe. This is not playing it safe. This is going for it in a way which is perhaps unexpected. It's not going for it in terms of the gore, or in terms of the scares, but it's going for something. Whether it achieves it or not is, we will debate that out now. But
I'm sure.
At least he's trying something here, and I can feel that he's trying it. I mean, I don't think it succeeds, and I think the film is shit. But at least he's trying to do something, which is interesting.
It's interesting as well, because Toby Hooper, who directed and co-wrote the first two films, wrote the second one himself, which again he tries something complete. They know, I think they know deep down they can't recapture the magic, and even though the films are basically the same idea over and over and over again, I think this film kind of acknowledges it in a way, kind of is, and that's kind of a critique. Now, Kim Henkel, the co-writer of the original, the director of this, the producer of this, the writer of this, didn't like the first film. Like he wasn't a fan, and he didn't quite understand why it caught on so much and why people liked it so much. And I think this opportunity was kind of, he kind of had his arm twisted, because he's not a director. I think he'd be the first to admit this, but I think he just wanted to put his own spin on it, or try something different, or there is commentary here. Again, I kind of agree with you. I don't think it's communicated as well as, there's something meta going on. There's several layers. You could view this as just like horror film, and it's just a remake or a rehash. But I think there is something being said and critiqued, whether it be horror fans, whether it be greedy movie studios, IP, the use of IP, the keeping of IP, the maintaining of IP. There's something, he's saying something. Again, the communication and the tools he's using might not be as good as, say, maybe a Cabin in the Woods type.
Yeah, I thought of that too. Yeah.
Or Wes Craven's New Nightmare, or Scream, even. Those are very meta, layer, reference. Oh, look at this trope. How funny is this trope? And oh, this always happens. I think there's something of that here.
Yeah.
But it's not delivered concretely and as clearly as those other films do.
No, I agree. I wrote down all the same touchstones, and there's one more I'll talk about in a second as well. But I think you and I both watched the the hour-long-ish documentary behind the scenes, and I think what stands out to me there from what you just said is the fact that he didn't like the original, and I think that's really clear in what he's doing here. But I also am not sure that he really likes this film or the process of making this film.
No,
either.
I got that.
Yeah, I don't think he's directed ever since, has he? So, it's such an interesting capsule of who he is and what he's trying to do, and it's a man frustrated by the system, but unfortunately that comes through in the film in inappropriate ways rather than interesting, creative ways. I think something else, the other touchstone that I was thinking of when I was watching this was Michael Haneke's Funny Games. I don't know if you've seen that. Which
I've not, but it's something I would like to investigate. I know he remade it as well in English, which is interesting. But yeah, it's not. And again, I hear about kind of a similar thing what they're playing with there. But yeah, I've not seen it myself.
So we won't talk about it too much. But again, that sense of like involving the audience, that audience participation in inviting them to question what they're watching and their involvement in it is very present in Hunger Games. It's not present in Hunger Games because that movie has no layers whatsoever. It's very present in Funny Games, but and I think that could have been, and he wants that to be present here, but it doesn't quite come off.
Or you know what? I'm now imagining a Hunger Games with all the different Texas Chainsaw families all pitted against each other.
Nice.
But let's be honest, I think this family would lose because they're shown to be inadequate. They're shown to be useless and stupid, and we'll talk about that mad twist that comes towards the end of the film. Not even really a twist, but it's kind of like, you know, you think the crazy person is talking crazy, but actually they're telling the truth, kind of thing. But yeah, they're shown to be, and again, I think that's Henkel saying, why are these films so successful? Why are these characters so heralded and remembered? They're just, you know, these fucking, you know, yokels from down the road. You know, what is so interesting and fascinating about them? But he does talk in that documentary about people he knows or people he noticed and their own kind of idiosyncrasies and things. And he does, you know, that does come through in a lot of the characters. And when they were like pitching this, the producer kind of pitched this and twisted his arm and was like, we want to get back to that real grittiness, that dark, that realism. Because it was like Kim Henkel was clearly like, he thinks the characters are so theatrical in the first one, which they are. They are kind of, you know, larger than life and strange and odd, but also quite realistic at the same time. It's I have a real strong connection with that film because it was one of the first kind of horror movies that it was a movie that was banned, and I think I saw the Channel 4 first release, or the Film 4 release of it. It was the first time they were showing it on television. So
with like a Mark Cousins introduction, he was doing them around then.
Yes,
I think.
I think so. Yeah, I think Mark Kermode did it. There was a documentary they put on, I think, before or after it as well. So it was a big deal for me seeing that first film, and again, just kind of welcome, you know, getting into that, the grittiness and the rawness of it. The thing is, as well, like a lot of people forget how funny that film is, how blackly humorous it is, and I think that does come through. Especially in the second one, that I think I describe it on a podcast I've got coming out as Toby Hooper's Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is his Gremlins 2.
Right. That's Dennis Hopper in that one, is it?
That's right. Yeah. Dennis Hopper's the kind of lead protagonist for the most part. And what it is it's like Joe Dante, again, wasn't particularly a fan of that first Gremlins film, really, even though he made it, and even though, you know, it doesn't really feel like his film. Gremlins 2, on the other hand, is exactly what he wants his films to be, like a, you know, Mad Magazine, Looney Tunes cartoon, and he kind of parodies, you know, and makes fun of that previous concept. And that's what Toby Hooper does, because he knows he can't beat the original. He can't top that, can't capture that again, the lightning in a bottle. He goes, right, let's do that, but let's like just ratchet up that humor to like an insane cartoony degree. And you get like characters like Chop Top, who's like has a plate in his head from Vietnam, and he's scratching it with a fucking coat hanger, you know, like absolute like wacky insane shit ensues. You've got Leatherface kind of dry humping the female lead with his chainsaw, you know, just utterly insane shit. But I still kind of enjoy it because they kind of embrace that element of it, and I think there's a bit of that here as well. Like, but again, if Kim Henkel has said that these original characters are theatrical, cartoonish, buffoonish, like if he's trying to get away from that, he failed because these are like on the same level, if not weirder or stranger or wackier than those original characters from that film. Something happened along the way. A lot of decisions were probably made along the way. And like the first like hour or so of this, or the first half an hour, the kind of standard, you know, slasher tropes. That, the car's broken down, lost in the woods. We're found by these strange people. It's just boring. It's bland. It's uninteresting.
Yeah.
It's shot poorly. So much fog. I don't know why there's so much fog. It doesn't feel like Texas. That first film, there's a dryness to it, like it's dry heat. They're all sweating. It's horrible. It's uncomfortable in that car, and then they get a hitchhiker in. Like it doesn't feel like Texas to me. I don't know what. Again, I've never been. I don't know what it's like. Maybe it is more woodland area. Maybe it's a bit colder or damper, or maybe it is really foggy. I don't know, but that's not what I think about when I think of Texas because of that first film, because of how influential it was and how it caught me at the right time and everything. And that's this just when you get into the house, they're all in there. All the characters are there. We're aware who's involved in this thing, and then more characters turn up towards the end. That's the best part of the film because it's just like a madhouse. It's a house of horrors. Kind of like scare, almost like a scare experience. When you go to a scare fest or something like that, and people are like up in your face and touching you, and like, oh yeah, we're gonna have some fun. All this sort of stuff. That's the bit I love is when it just goes absolutely full tilt crazy. But all the other stuff, I'm like, get the fuck on with it. Like for me, but
no, I agree. It's borderline unwatchable, that early stuff. Like the characters are horrible. The lines they spout are just, it's like a dialogue rather than dialogue. It's just atrocious, isn't it? It's and having watched that documentary now, I understand that was on purpose. He was writing them as tropes. I get it, but you've already name checked Cabin in the Woods. Well, Cabin in the Woods used tropes on purpose, but they were characters you still wanted to kind of spend time with. You still wanted to see what happens to them. Whereas like Barry and Sean and Heather, they're just they are like the things they but I don't know. Like even in most of these kind of slasher movies, when people are foddy, you kind of look forward to them being killed because you want to see the creative ways they're killed or getting their comeuppance. Here, I just want these people to go away, and like the way Barry talks just isn't the way people talk. And the decisions made, and I know there's the scream joke of running up the stairs, and we talk about in horror movies like poor decisions people make, but like Heather running away from the prom, I get because she caught Barry kissing another girl, fine. But Heather driving the car down this random track in Texas, I would like, where the fuck's she going? What is she doing? None of this makes sense. Like, I need some logical motivation to get us to the location we need to be.
And they just all of a sudden just go, oh, we're lost.
Yeah.
But where were you going?
They were on a freeway a minute ago that had a slight diversion on it, and now suddenly,
like there's a bit where they go to pick up some food, which we'll get into as well.
Oh yeah,
and they could have just done that. They could have just gone there, and then I don't know, something else happened. But yeah, it just seems like, and it's a little contrived that they're in the car as well in the back getting busy, even though it's his dad's car. Like,
they're getting high, I think, aren't they, or something? They say,
but that was it. They're supposed to, it was supposed to, he's like, I know you're not getting jiggy with it because you're like, he's making her out that
you're
she's
frigid and you're ugly.
all this sort of
Renee
shit.
Zellweger,
yeah, sure. But then she's like, I've seen her in the gym. She's got a body to die for, and he's like, But yeah, he's not good enough that you want to see him dead as a kind of misogynist prick. But yeah, I think you're right. I think you don't want them dead. You just want them gone. You just want them like, let's cut to another person, cut to this, cut to that, cut to anything else. And Heather's fine, I think. I don't, but again, she doesn't. She's placed class. There's a lot of retreading of the classic things that happen in the original film, like her going on the meat hook, and then this version is also. There was a version released, which was the original version, which was the return. Of the Massacre, and then it was didn't do very well, so they recut it, re-edited it, and when Zellweger and McConaughey were getting quite big because I think it was Time to Kill and Jerry Maguire, they wanted to re-release it, so they wanted to edit, play around, change the music, and then re-release it, which they did, but apparently the agents of Zellweger and McConaughey were like, you're not sabotaging their career with this film, and they're like, "No, we want to make some money off you, and you're now stardom, please." But they were like, "No, it's they're going to bury it." There was a minor release, a small release, I think. It still came out, but just didn't do very well, unsurprisingly.
Yeah, exactly.
But then, there you have it. Strange.
And I think I don't know. It's just, I just keep back to that same idea. Like, I think I understand the intention, but the execution is just so poor and so lacking. You said, like, the direction is awful. Nothing. It all reeks of like a facade of being fake. And again, maybe that's what he was going for, but there's just a way to do it that is successful, and this just isn't it.
I was looking up some of the like Joe Blow seems to cover this quite a lot. They did a black sheet, which is them kind of defending it, and then they also did a what the fuck happened to it as well. How did it end up this bad kind of thing, behind the scenes type thing. And it's one that even they contacted Kim Henkel about interviewing him again, and he was like, you know what, I don't want to talk about this film. Like, he turned down the interview, so they wrote an article about it, but without Kim Henkel. But he had all the questions planned, and then he says in the Joe Blow article, he goes, "I'm kind of going to defend it now, but I know it's a piece of shit. But there is something here, within the layers and layers of false faces and fucking animal skin lamps. There's some idea here. There's some intention, some crumb of him trying to say something, but it's covered in all this grubby McConaughey cutting himself in front of everybody and screaming like a dog, which again is probably the most memorable part of the film. I will say, and probably the best part of the film is, to quote another one of his films that you will cover in the future, you never go full R word. Is what I'll say. I won't say the word for sensitive ears, but like we used to use that term in the acting community, and when I do theatre and stuff. I did a Lord of the Flies performance, and I was the villain in that. And my friend Dan Keatis, my scene partner, he came off and said, "You went full R word, didn't you?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And I'm like, I got like a knife and my tongue's out, and I'm like, and that's what he does here. Luckily, I think it's fairly entertaining and interesting. I don't think it's his best acting that he'll ever do.
No, I think he'd agree with that too.
But I think he's having fun. I think he's enjoying himself, and he's playing with that idea. And I was wondering, because like at this period, like Val Kilmer's going through his kind of prima donna phase, isn't he? At this kind of point, and I was thinking, is Vilmer, his character's name, a combination of Val Kilmer, like a portmanteau? I don't know what
nice,
conjunctive thing. So I don't know if maybe it's like, oh yeah, this is what Val Kilmer's really like, behind closed doors or something.
Interesting. I hadn't even thought of that, and I wonder where they would have crossed paths for that to happen. But yeah, I mean, let's make that's canon from now.
Yeah, I mean, there's enough timelines for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series of films, so we'll include that.
Yeah, I mean, whilst we're here, let's talk about McConaughey, shall we? I mean, obviously, we'll come back to him as well, but I don't know. I guess maybe he saw this as a bit of a... I don't know if I want to call it a big break, because obviously the budget was minuscule, really. It was, what, 600,000 or something? But it's an opportunity for him to be in a film that's got a legacy, set in an area that he is from. I guess that probably means a lot to him. Obviously, Renée Zellweger's from Texas as well, isn't she?
They filmed on location as well, so it was,
Yeah. So I can kind of see he's probably thought like, oh, this is great. I'm gonna go for it, and he does go for it. Jesus, he goes big. And like you said, he sort of looks back on it and he sort of thinks of it fondly. And he was only just graduated from college at this point. Like, it was literally so early on in his career that I guess this probably felt like not quite a turning point for him, but it probably felt like kind of special for him for all of this confluence of stuff to be coming together at this point in the area that he's from. So I think he probably just was having a good time. And yeah, I think he's okay in it. Do you know, when I think of other big performances like this, oh, not even like this, but you think of like big performances that really go for it.
Yeah. I think
he doesn't quite have the chops of actors that can pull that off.
I think the kindest thing I've heard about it, well, I said, I've used the term, you never go full R word, but on the other end of that, I think the kindest thing I'd heard about it or read about it was this is him doing the Nicolas Cage thing. Like Nicolas Cage loses his shit. But there is something almost, because he does it so often and he does it in such an interesting way, I think Nicolas Cage is ultimately very watchable. And I don't think McConaughey is quite there. And again, like Nicolas Cage has a very unique, literally he created his own acting style. I can't remember what it's called, but there is a name for it if you want to Google it. And it is all about just kind of going out there and being, on this level where all your other co-stars aren't. Like their performances here and yours is like, it's like a new level, or it's somehow blending film and theatricality in the same thing. And
he loves all the kind of expressionism stuff, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's kind of like a nouveau riche thing. I can't remember the name for it exactly, but he's very experimental. He stitches things into his costumes and almost like a shaman and stuff, and talismans and things,
Of course he does,
of course, because it's Nick Cage, he has fucking alien skulls and shit, and names his children Kal-El, and which is amazing, which I love, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I think that's the kindest thing. He's going for that kind of Nicolas Cage, it's very like there's definitely a line here from Vampire's Kiss to the Texas Chainsaw, The Next Generation. You can see those performances. There's a definite link, however thin or small that line, that kind of connected tissue is. You can definitely see that here.
Oh, definitely. And even though they're very different films, I think of something like Michael Keaton in Beetlejuice, like really going for it and like pulling it off, or like Christian Bale in American Psycho, or like, again, really different films. Really different acting performances in those, but they're like actors like really going for something and pulling it off. And I think he's really going for something here. But I think, you're right. He's not quite the complete actor he's going to become. He's an Oscar-winning actor. Let's not forget. And very good in a lot of roles. And even when he's in that kind of rom-com sludge, and I only use that term because he's not a fan of that period of his own work. We'll see what we think of the films when we get there. We've already mentioned one earlier that there's one I unabashedly love that we will get to. He's not quite. But also he's not got anybody directing him. Sorry, Henkel, to come back to you. That probably is helping him to control that performance in the way that you think about the other directors that of the movies that we're talking about. Well, like Bruce Campbell and Evil Dead, do you know what I mean? Like Evil Dead 2. Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 is quite an interesting comparison point here too, as well. About it's kind of a remake of the original film, but it's more outlandish, it's more cartoonish, it's more comedic, in quote unquote. But the directors that are helping these actors control their performances are much stronger as well.
Yeah, I think there's a definite. I think it is a lot of Henkel's just inexperience, I think, with the idea of directing and getting those ideas across. It's ultimately it's communication, isn't it? Direction and your intention. You have to get that across to the audience. You have to tell them exactly what they, it's multiple layers. And I think that the problem is, I think the producers, again, the producer wants a Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. But Kim Henkel does not want to make a Texas Chainsaw Massacre film for what he understands them to be. He wants to do something different. He wants to riff on them, have fun with them, shake it up, do something different.
Yeah.
Which he does. He introduces several wild elements, but, for me, I would, and again, it kind of, we see in these legacy sequels where it's like, we've got to do the reference to this, and we've got to call back to this, and we're going to do that, and we're going to find out how Han Solo got his blaster for some reason, and why he has his name, which, again, can work. These things can work and can be done quite well. But these ones, it does and again, this is him. I think this is him trying to say we are retreading the same ground in each of these films. I think this is what he is actively doing, but he's also falling into the trap of doing it, which is the problem. He just goes like, if for example, if Leatherface put Heather on the hook, and like the hook went like straight through her like clavicle bone and came out the side, like that might be funny. Like he keeps trying to hook her on, like, and it just her body just keeps like falling apart or something, or do something different, because all he does is he hooks her on, and that's it. And she somehow finds, and it's not does the hammer thing as well.
Yeah,
does the hammer thing as well. Again, not interesting, not edited as well. Again, I think this was re-edited against Kim Henkel's wishes. So the version we're watching could be argued the producer cut, or whatever you want to call it, theatrical cut. This is not quite his intended vision, but even so, and there's moments where you're like, Leatherface just picking at her hair like a orangutan or like an ape, and like looking for nits is just uninteresting. I went round to my friend Lucy's house to watch this because I was going to go. She invited me round, and I was like, I'm short on time, I've got to watch this. Lucy, are you okay watching this film? And she was like, okay, sure. And she's not one for horror films, but she watches them and she still enjoys them. But she was not a fan of like Leatherface creeping around and being weird and stuff. And she actually towards the end was like, what is this? She said, I said, what did you think, Lucy? She went, I am speechless. And I was like, that does not surprise me. That does not surprise me. Because I even said to her, I was like, in a set of weird films, this is a weird film. And she's like, okay, right. I've never seen the other ones. Do I need to have seen the other ones? No, don't worry about it. It's its own animal. But I think by the end of the film, she was kind of getting into it and enjoying the performances, the madness and the weirdness, and kind of embraced it by the end. And then we went on, we were talking about watching another film, and we were going through Netflix, and we found How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. So we had a Matthew McConaughey double bill. And she said she's very much looking forward to hearing your podcast on that when you get to it. I'm going to send her the link to listen, because I'm sure she'll enjoy it. But yes, there was a lot of problematic gender stereotypes, I should say, and in that film. But she came out, this was her feeling. She came out and she went, I think his performance in Texas Chainsaw was better than his performance in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. And I was like, wow, that is wild. She was like, yeah, but he's going for it. He's really going for it. He's giving it all. Like, this is just like he's just a guy. He's just a guy who likes sports in this. And I was like, I kind of sort of agree with you.
Yeah.
All this kind of problematic dated stuff in this film, I kind of would rather watch The Weird Family in Texas Chainsaw, and that version of problematic stuff I'm much more okay with, in a weird twisted way, I'm sure. But yeah, she came out having a great time, and we were doing lots of impressions to make each other laugh, like Filmer, get a leather, get that bitch, all that sort of stuff, just cracking each other up. So we had a ball.
Good. I'm glad.
I don't know how you felt about it.
Yeah, sat alone on my sofa. Why have I done this to myself again? No, I think it's amazing how the Wolf of Wall Street thing, the beat in the chest, that caught on, but Matthew McConaughey as Vilma, for some reason, I don't know why that didn't catch on as like I just don't get it. Look, hit himself in the head and all sorts, isn't he? That's bad.
That's what I was doing every time. Like we were just chatting every so often. I would just be like, no. So funny. It's just so weird. But yeah, like talking about the stuff again. Him trying to kind of like, it's like the Ouroboros, isn't it? It's the snake eating its own tail thing, which is franchise filmmaking. Like, how many times have we seen Halloween, remade? And how many times have we seen all these kind of horror franchises? And what do they do to make it different or to change it up? And he's definitely doing that. Kim Henkel is definitely trying to do that. One of the interesting things he chooses to do is they're no longer cannibals.
Yeah, they're eating takeaway pizza. Yeah.
Yeah, they're and vegetarian takeaway pizza. Like that like that's an intentional gag. That's an intentional joke, but it doesn't come across that way. And then they're still like cutting people up. They're still, using their faces. They're still making lampshades out of animals, and they find carcasses on the roadkill and stuff. And it's strange that they lose that element. It's almost like I don't know. It feels like a big part of the character's DNA is that they're cannibals, and I'm not quite sure if you take that away, it adds anything. I think it's kind of a big part of them. I don't know. It's strange. I don't know how you felt about them not being cannibals.
I guess if we don't have the final twist, like you said, is it a twist? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
If we don't have that reveal in the third act, I'm wondering what the point of it all is. I guess as we have this, maybe this is the point for us to talk about it, as we have this kind of reveal of them being controlled, of them being required to do this by some like Illuminati style, like
shadowy group organization.
Yeah, I guess it didn't really bother me that much at that point, because I was, I guess I'm caught up in all the kind of weirdness. And he does bite Heather's nose, doesn't he, and sort of enjoys the act of doing that. So maybe they are still kind of
maybe they've just ordered pizza to order pizza.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's again, I mean, maybe this is a point maybe we'll talk about all at the same time. The bit when they're at the when she's at ordering the fast food and she's at the drive-through. Again, there's clearly some sort of comment being made here about this disposable. Again, I don't know. I don't know what the comment was. That scene is fucking weird. I didn't really get it. Maybe explain it to me, but
maybe they're saying that these movies are like fast food. They're disposable, they're quick, they're easy, they're fun. They're accessible, but once they're gone, and you kind of just forget about it and leave it.
Yeah,
maybe that's why he's making a comment on the horror and the horror film making industry. Maybe, perhaps. Maybe I'm reading too much into this. I'm doing a Tony Farina.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because there's the line that Vilma says, which is like, when talking about Leatherface, he's bored of wearing this face and he wants a new one and he wants it to be yours. So this idea of like putting on a new mask, this again of like becoming the new iteration of something, it being the new young hip version of something is definitely there too, isn't it? I read a really interesting review as well where it was talking about how each of the family are in some sort of stage of transformation, perhaps. So you've got Vilma, who's got his robotic leg. You've got Leatherface, who wears other people's faces. You've got the girlfriend who's had like a boob job and has like plastic surgery. So again, this reviewer might have been reading more into it than was perhaps intended. But I thought that was quite an interesting take on it as well. That it's that coming back to again that sense of like reinvention and wanting to be something different from what you used to be before. And
I guess WE as well, he's quoting literary and political figures, so he's almost trying to lift himself up from his roots, from this kind of redneck roots. He wants to be better and bigger and more intelligent and listened to, because he's really not he's not important in the scheme of the family. He's kind of and he's kind of the guy who does, he's the one who kind of shovels the shit, so to speak, So I can get behind that. I can get behind that.
But again, I think we're back to where we were started. We're biting our own tail. Where like all these things are being tried, but either I don't quite understand the motivation, or the payoff doesn't quite work, or none of it just. Maybe it's too much. It's like classic throwing shit at the fan and seeing what sticks. Like there's all these ideas flying around, and actually one would have been better to have stuck with and to have persevered with and to have done successfully, rather than having all these different kind of potential meta-ness and satire and black comedy and critique of the film industry. And I think you're right, all of that's here, but none of it is done successfully.
No, I agree. And I think the family are almost too antagonistic to each other as well. Because I think in even in those, even in that first film, there is some antagonism. They do beat each other up and yell at each other and stuff. But they're still working towards the same goal. Like there's moments in this where he's going to kill her, like he's choking her with the mechanical leg, and then and
he does kill WE, doesn't he?
Yeah, he kills WE. Yeah, because and again, there's moments like, and that's an interesting moment because I'm like, oh shit, he has fucking killed him, and there's all these moments where you think, oh, maybe he's that loose, he's that much of a loose cannon that he could kill any of them at any point, but he just hasn't just yet. And what is the reason behind that? And it's bizarre.
And again, is that meant to be the film industry? Everyone's
exactly
fighting each other for the scraps that they can get, and who's the big? Maybe, but is this again us having to work hard to put something into it, or
probably try and find something in all this? But like I was saying, they are shown as being very inadequate, this version of the, because like some versions they're known as the Sawyer family, some versions they're known as the Slaughter family. I think Slaughter was more of a Kim Henkel thing, Sawyer was more of a Toby Hooper thing. And like there is no chainsaw kill, by the way, in Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. In fact,
he's very impotent with his chainsaw. Really, he doesn't do anything useful with it.
No,
again, which I'm sure is probably on purpose.
Yeah, and he doesn't do anything. I think with this one, it's almost again that he's trying to go, this is your horror icon. This guy is your horror icon. I'll show you why he's not a horror icon, because there is no menace to him, really. I mean, him running around with a chainsaw potentially could be scary, and I do quite enjoy him, him on the roof and going through the walls and stuff. I enjoyed, and I like his kind of, I enjoy the classic kind of chainsaw dance and stuff. But again, this is referencing other stuff, really. But
and there's no threat. Sorry to interject. You're right, there's no threat. Like the bit on the roof.
Yeah.
He's cutting at brick and he's cutting at a metal aerial, and she's right there. She's she's right there if you actually wanted to get her. So I mean, again, I didn't sense any threat there. And then when they're on foot, I mean, credit where it's credit's due. Renee Zellweger is fast at running. She is like a bloody Olympic sprinter when she gets going, and you've got this dude lumbering after her. It's that classic thing, I know, horror movies, lumbering after her with this big heavy chainsaw. 1 minute he's a mile behind, and the next shot he's 3 feet behind. There's no way he was catching Zellweger the way she could.
It's the whole Jurassic Park T-Rex sneaking up on you.
All
of a sudden it's But I actually, to give Renée Zellweger props, I do think she is. I think she handles this quite well. And Kim Henkel does talk about the trope of being the victim, the woman women being more vulnerable and less physically strong, and all this. And he is trying to play with that a little bit as well, because there is a cut scene of her being her stepfather is abusive to her, which I think we've seen that making of documentary as well. And that's kind of part of her story, is that she's gaining more confidence. And she realizes she is stronger than all of this, and this is nothing really. Which comes in part to when Rothman comes in, who's the leader of the Illuminati, let's say, the man in the limo, and there's a moment where she goes, she's had it. She basically just says, "I've had enough."
Yeah, she tells Leatherface to sit down and puts him in his place.
Yeah, just Leatherface
I'm going to leave,
and she's like, "Shut the fuck up and sit the fuck down. I'm off." And they don't stop her. She literally kind of basically just walks out, and then they use the fucking robot leg as well. Fucking hell. Again, that's a gag as well. It's so fucking ludicrous. It's so ridiculous. He's he's got 20 remote controls that operate it. It's got a fucking Hoover hose on it. I know it's supposed to be funny, but it's never funny. It's never used in a way where it could be really humorous. And then the only times it is used, it's quite dangerous and crushing somewhat Heather's skull, I think. But there could have been a gag there, and I think I think it's almost like when someone goes, "Oh, it'd be funny if we did this," and someone goes, "Oh yeah, that would be funny."
Mm-hmm.
Instead of going, "Oh, that's really a good idea. That's really funny." Like the jokes aren't there. The basis for the humor, the rule of three, for example, things like that. They're not there. If you are going to make comedy, you kind of needs to be, the timing needs to be there.
Yeah, it's a horror movie that's not scary and a comedy that's not funny. I mean, that's essentially the trouble with this.
That's it.
But underneath all of that, underneath all the stuff and the attempts and the trying, we could praise him for all of that, but it doesn't do the basics it's supposed to do. And even things like this commentary about Renee Zellweger's character, about the fact that she's meant to be, it's a feminist treatise on agency and whatever he wants to call it. Like, okay, but you can argue a lot of horror movies have this sense of the final girl becoming somebody who overcomes this, but then also when you have the girlfriend character who's completely mistreated and completely subservient and has no agency or power whatsoever, that totally takes away.
She says she pretends to be stupid so people will like her as well.
Yeah, and flashes boobs at teenage boys as they drive past in the car, and the mixed messages is such a problem.
You're right. You are right. Like I'm not saying again he delivers that message. I think Renée Zellweger does a lot with a little.
Yes. Oh yeah, sure. That's fair.
And I think she does. Like you can see that you can sort of see the arc. It's kind of again. There's a lot of kind of shit around it, but I think
he lets Barry talk shit to her in the car, but she won't let Vilma and Leatherface. But in the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like have dominance over her, and as you said, like the Illuminati guy Rothman is so impressed by her at the end that she's the one he wants to take under his wing. She's the one he wants to reward, and he punishes the family for their failures. So I hear you. It's there.
Yeah.
It's just again, unfortunately, all the shit that's surrounding it.
Yeah. Another
takes
thing
away from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that he kind of seems to want to explore is Leatherface himself and the various personalities he has and the different faces and identities. Like you could argue that he's maybe a cross-dressing character. Is he a trans character? Maybe there's something there to be explored. And I find that very interesting. He talks about in the making of, he's like, it's terrifying, but it's fascinating at the same time. And I'm like, yeah, that is. But where is it? Like, you put him in a new dress, a new skin suit, and you just have him cry and whine and scream. Like 70% of this film, much like the original, is just screaming. It is. Too much. There's not much dialogue, and it is. Yeah, and it's just like. And that's another thing, another problem with it. But there's an idea there. Again, I think it would take a better filmmaker, a better writer to explore that. And I'd love to see. Again, I'm waiting for. I want to see kind of like trans horror movies. I'm waiting for those directors and writers to come forth and give us those classic takes from a new perspective that we've not really heard much from. And I think. Maybe that's a way you could take this franchise or whatever you want to do with it. But yeah, again, too many ideas, not explored enough or given enough time to breathe, and not delivered or executed in a satisfactory manner.
Yeah, because as you said, everybody's too busy screaming or shouting or yelling. I'll be honest, by the time we get to kind of the start of the stuff in the house, I find fairly interesting. The bits in the kitchen and the kind of battle for power between them. By the time we get to the dinner scene, and they're just basically just all fucking shouting at each other and screaming at each other, and it's the third time that Renée Zellweger's nearly got away and then come back. I'm just like, fuck me, like this again. It's just so repetitive and boring. I was just sort of done by this point, if I'm honest.
They've only got one location.
Absolutely.
There's no way you're going to like another location.
And also, to come back to the quality of the shooting, a couple of different angles, like one sort of slightly higher up, looking down on the dinner table. It's almost like they had a 2-camera setup, one from the side looking at them at eye level. Like they had these 2 cameras set up, and it's like, right now, just film for 20 minutes, just make shit up, off you go, and that's what we get. Like there's no editing as such going on. It's just cut from that camera. It's almost like live TV. Camera 1, camera 2, camera 1, camera 2.
Yeah. Like there's and again, like when action sequences happen or the horror sequences happen, it is edited very jarringly as well. Like the burning bit where he's like, burn,
oh yeah,
all that, and I was just like, what? I don't know what's going on. I can't see what's going on. People are screaming. What the fuck is happening? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, there's a moment when the girlfriend character, I'm not even can't even be bothered to use anybody's names at this point. I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm just so done with it. She's like down on the floor, isn't she, in the dinner in the dining room, just like screaming. I don't know if I'd missed something, like why she was down doing that. And yeah, you're right. It's too.
She ends up in the road. She somehow unhooks herself from the meat hook.
Oh no, sorry, not. I meant Vilma's girlfriend. Sorry, not Heather.
Oh yeah. The part of the family. The estate agent woman.
Yes, I mean, yeah. Again, we get no explanation for how Heather got herself off that meat hook. Like ridiculous.
Yeah.
It just all becomes chaos and anarchy, and if that's what he's going for, fine. But I've just lost interest at this point.
Yeah. And the estate agent thing could be interesting. Like, explore that. Like, why is she selling people houses? Do they live near or next door? Or have they got secret passageways to get into those houses and to kill people in there and, do stuff? Like, this whole Illuminati plot. So Rothman comes in.
Yeah.
At the end, he's a mysterious man in a limousine. He knows what's going on. And it's implied throughout by the estate agent lady who's part of the family, who's Vilma's girlfriend, that Vilma is working for some shadowy organization, which is Illuminati is on the truck. So, and they basically say it's the Illuminati without saying it's the Illuminati or New World Order or whatever you want to call it. And he comes in and he is very disappointed. Again, this is, I feel, is the critique. It could be horror fans.
Chastises Vilma, doesn't he, for his poor job? Yeah.
He said, I want people to experience true horror, like not even like murder or anything, kill or like sell the meat on or anything like that. It's just like, I want people to have an almost transcendental experience. I think he said.
And this is where that Cabin in the Woods stuff comes back in again, isn't it? Yeah.
And again, it's like playing on the tropes and making fun of them.
Yeah.
And he's saying, and Rothman is literally saying at the end, skipping to the end, how disappointing this experience has been, almost critiquing not only the film, the previous films, all this other stuff. He's basically saying, sorry, this film was so shit. Almost. And all these films have been so shit. The introduction, the classic kind of, voiceover and kind of crawl indicates as well. This is like a loose remake, like we said, but it indicates the two previous entries, including the original. He describes them as minor events. Again, going like, they were shit, but this is the one that's going to be the new classic. Sure. But again, it's that commentary. And he is kind of almost, it did bring, like, he opens his shirt for no real reason to show it. He's got several kind of nipples and markings, engravings or scarring, very Cenobite-y, very Hellraiser. I got.
I didn't know if it mattered. He's French. He's got a French accent, I thought.
I think he was English, but...
Oh, really? All right.
I mean...
I don't know why I heard it.
You might have... I'll be honest, with all the... you might have tuned out, Jack. You might have been like, I don't want to hear anymore.
And maybe I was, again, reading that into it. I didn't know if it was going to, critique of the French and they think they make high art or... But also there's a movie that came much, much later than this called Martyrs. I don't know if you've seen it. And again, there was a remake.
Yeah, I own it, but I've not, I love my gore and horror and all that stuff. But even I know that's going to be a hard watch.
It is a hard watch. But again, it's about that transcendental nature of, can you go somewhere through kind of pain and horror? And so, I don't know. Maybe because that film exists and I've seen it and my brain took me there too. I don't know. It felt like it felt like that moment in Lady in the Water, the Shyamalan film, where you've got like the film critic and it's meant to be like kind of the film critic.
Yeah.
And this felt almost like this guy coming in, as you said, is like the film critic coming in, critiquing it. Very interestingly, what's on screen here as well as what's come before.
And almost like, why do we want this? Why does the audience want this? Why do they
definitely.
And I think that's it. Is you've got someone who didn't like the first film, who made the first film, doesn't know why people like the first film. Going, why am I making this? I don't even know if he likes horror films. I don't even know if he likes horror because he doesn't really talk about that. He doesn't go, these influences here and that. I don't even know if he's that interested. I think he might just be. This might be kind of almost just a gig for him, just like, fair enough. I think probably because he owned most of the majority of the rights to the films as well. I think probably helped. But yeah, bizarre. And then again, Rothman, like Zellweger escapes, and then we get basically Vilma's shouting at Leatherface to get Renée Zellweger's character. Again, I've forgotten her name now. And she's running, and this she's
Jenny.
Jenny, sure. Well, we'll say Jenny. This Winnebago and these two elderly. The worst fucking dubbing I've seen for a long time on this elderly couple having fucking Bloody Marys or something in their Winnebago. And she's running up, and the wife's like, "Don't stop, don't stop." And then all of a sudden she's like, "No, stop. She's a girl. She needs help." And then she gets in, and then it turns over. Leatherface knocks it. I think something happens. It falls over. She gets out. She runs. They're dead. And then Leatherface is still going for her. And then the crop dusting plane out of nowhere arrives. And then Vilma drives in. We don't see McConaughey, though. He's completely out of the film by this point, really. You don't see his face again. A guy drives up in the truck that's implied to be Vilma. And then this crop duster dive bombs into Vilma and kills him, which is implied that the Illuminati have paid him to do that or told him to do that because he's been doing such a shit job at making this woman experience true horror. And then again, he gives that kind of speech. And then right at the end, we get like cameos from people from the original film, like Marilyn Burns is in it, who's the final Scream Queen. And I think Franklin is there and maybe another actor as well.
I think it's the orderly and the cop. Yeah, I read. Yeah, the cop, isn't it? Yeah.
And they're implying that stuff like this has happened before. So it's implying that Marilyn Burns is playing Sally Hardesty from the first film. Very weird, kind of tacked on. Again, this feels like the Legacy sequel before Legacy sequels in a weird way, while not being a sequel, but it kind of is, kind of not, sort of a remake. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Speaking of the trans thing and the sexual identities of Leatherface, I remember seeing this like when I was young, which must have been its initial release in like video shops like Blockbuster and various places. And I remember I must have at least seen the first one or knew about the first one at this point because I saw the cover and it's kind of like a Leatherfacing, almost like a nun garb. The cover, there's various covers, but that's the one. Just him sat down.
There's as many covers as there is potential plot lines in this and potential commentary in this movie. Yeah,
problems. And I remember looking at that and going, "Oh, it's Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. It's a woman is now Leatherface." So I thought that image was like a sexy woman, and it's only up until recently did I realize it was actually a male Leatherface. And I was like, "Oh yeah, sexy nun lady." Yeah. No, it's just a man. It's just a man.
You and your nun fetish. Even right? Leatherface in a habit does it for you.
I can't help it. Can't help it. Can't help it. Yeah, dog will hunt. Dog will hunt.
Yeah.
To quote the second film. Can't get
yes, I mean the fact that you just described the end of that's probably 10 minutes you just described. Old people crash, hospital, Illuminati guy again, North by Northwest, Hitchcockian, crop duster, all that shit. And I'm just like, what, why? So it just really like again another sequence that just sums up really strange. Because when the old people came in, I thought, oh, this is interesting. Is this going to be like the commentary of like who films are that like this idea of
aimed for or something?
Yeah, or like who is it? What is it called when people go and watch films and they give their views on it before it comes out? Like test screenings.
Oh, test screenings. Yeah.
Is it like this idea of like old white middle America? They're the problem because in test screenings they're the ones who are giving bad feedback, and so I'm going to kill them off in there. So I thought, oh, that's quite interesting. But then it doesn't really add up to anything again, and then because he just then undercuts it by the next idea, which is this weird Illuminati crop duster, and then this next idea, which is it meta and it's in a hospital and it's meant to be, as you said, a legacy sequel. I'm like, but I was already thinking about that idea, and now I've got to think about that idea, and now there's this idea, and like it's just too much.
bit schizophrenic. Again, like much like the character of Leatherface, I think the film doesn't know its identity. I think it just does. It keeps changing the masks. Is it about this? Is it about this? What theme is it? What's that? What's this? What commentary are we making? But again, like it's changing the mask too often for us to get a real sense of it. Again, I think the producer again had an idea. Kim sort of had an idea, and it's unfortunately it is a kind of a patchworky film.
That's a nice way to put it.
Not the
it's a Frankenstein movie, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
You know, I think you've been very fair. I've been much more critical, but I would say like it is interesting. It is worth watching in terms of like from a cinephile. That's not a word I really like. I don't know why I said that word. How wanky is that, cinephile?
I've heard wanky of the words than cinephile.
Oh yeah, but do you know what I mean? Like if you call yourself a cinephile, there's problems with you. But like, that idea of like if you've got if you want to investigate like these kind of interesting, all these films we've spoken about, the Haneke movies and all these other movies we've referenced, Cabin in the Woods and Evil Dead and all this stuff, these are films you should watch if you're interested in the art of cinema. That's better. The art of cinema.
There we go.
I think this is attempting to be art. And so I think it's interesting and it's worth watching for that, but it's not a good film.
I'd agree. Again, I did most of the Halloween franchise and now the podcast starts. I covered most of those, and again, they are on some, very, there's a lot of timelines, a lot of varying quality around the same fucking idea, and that's like I can't disagree with you. I think it is interesting. It's one of these that keeps being talked about. Like it keeps cropping up. People do talk about it. Joe Blow covers it a lot, like I mentioned, at least twice on their YouTube channel. So it's something that I like we said earlier. I don't like a bland film. I don't like a boring film, an uninteresting film. I like films that take risks and try things. And this definitely does that in spades. Probably too much. It takes too much. Kind of again, there's a lot to be said. There's a lot to discuss. There's a lot of things and ideas that are not fully developed, unfortunately. But he wanted to do this. They twisted his arm. He kind of was like, I don't know, but he did do it, and it came out. However you want to talk about, however you want to feel about it, it is what it is. But yeah, I think it's an interesting film, but it's not a good film. I think the behind the scenes stuff is arguably more interesting than what we get on screen. I think if you'd never seen a Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, like Lucy, she enjoyed it, but mostly because it is batshit crazy. Like, I think before this, she wasn't that into it, and then as it went on, and we got more McConaughey. I think I'll be honest. I think Zellweger and McConaughey are the only reasons to watch it.
Yes.
I think if you're looking for a Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, there are nine of them. You've got a wide selection to choose from. I would go with probably the first two as my kind of favorites, and the remake ones are all right, and they kind of vary. Even the prequel to the me and Dan just did Livid for Shockphobia Fest, and the directors of that did. That's why we talked about Texas Chainsaw, because they did the prequel to Texas Chainsaw 3D, which is definitely the worst one. I swear to God, it's definitely the worst one. The Leatherface prequel is kind of more of a Rob Zombie Devil's Rejects kind of film, and you're trying to figure out which of these escaped child mental patients is going to become Leatherface. Like which one will be, you're like, oh, is it the larger set boy who's mute? I wonder. Or is he a red herring? Is he a red herring? Maybe, I don't know. But again, for some reason, a lot of these films are shot in Bulgaria now. These Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, at least two of them have been filmed in Bulgaria, I believe. But yeah, I think if you're looking for a McConaughey film that you haven't seen, and he's making wild choices, this is for you. If you want to see Renée Zellweger do what she does best in a very strange cult genre film, then go for this. But yeah, if you're looking for a good horror film, don't come here. If you're looking for a good Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, don't come here either.
No.
Just leave it at the door. Look what your brother did to the door. Just leave it there. Go order pizza. Don't tuck into whatever this cannibal mess is.
No, I think it's totally fair. But I think, I echo that. And I think I would just say, what is it? 94 Wes Craven's New Nightmare, 96 Scream.
Yeah.
This sits in the middle of those two, and you could probably argue they're all trying to do something meta to do with the horror genre. This is a long way down from what Wes Craven managed to do with those two movies. This really, the difference between Wes Craven and Kim Henkel is pretty stark when you look at those as kind of a little trilogy of mid-90s meta horrors.
Yeah, and again, like I only saw it, I think last year, New Nightmare for the first time, and again, I watched all of those Nightmare films when I was younger, when I was a teenager, and they again very varying quality a lot. But that one I really enjoyed. But you can see where he's going. Like, like it's not perfect. It's not Scream. It's not like
quite
Scream.
Yeah.
Is that kind of,
you don't get Scream without it, but
agreed.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not quite there. I think Kevin Williamson added a lot with his writing and kind of solidified that idea maybe in the way. And again, like him kind of portraying these, like obviously Scream is quite realistic kind of teenagers, and then this he's going, teenagers, like it's the kind of caricature. And
yes, I think that's the right word.
Yeah, I think that's a good word actually. And again, these are kind of caricatures of almost caricatures of caricatures of caricatures.
Yeah.
Almost.
Another layer.
So many layers of skin to go on. But yeah, it's an interesting film, but it's not a good film.
Agreed. Shall we hear what Matthew McConaughey has to say from his autobiography, Greenlights?
Yes, please.
Now, I'll preface it slightly in that this is quite a famous story that he's retold a few times, but it is the only story, I'm afraid, that I can quote you from his autobiography. But he does talk about how he got the role. So he says, a couple of days before the Saturday shoot, I met with the director, Kim Henkel, who asked if I knew any male actors who might be right for the lead role of Vilma, the killer with a mechanical leg who drives a tow truck. Very simplified description there. I gave him the names of two actors I knew from the Donna Adams talent agency. With the U-Haul already packed to the ceiling, I swung by the small home that was the production office to pick up the two scenes I'd be shooting that weekend, because initially, famously, he was cast in a much smaller role. Come Monday, it would be time to head west, young man, and chase down my Hollywood dreams. With the two scenes in hand, I exited the house and walked up the small asphalt footpath, and as I unlocked my driver's side door, opened it and began to step into the cab, a thought occurred to me. Why don't I try out for the role of Vilma? I stepped out of the open door, shut it behind me, and strode back down the walkway to the office door, and without knocking, went inside. Hey, Matthew, you forget something, Kim asked. Yeah, I did. I want to try out for that role of Vilma. Clearly surprised, Kim said. Well, sure, that's a great idea. When do you want to try it? Right now, I said without thinking. Well, we don't have any actresses here. It's just you, me, and Michelle, he said. I looked at Michelle, the secretary behind her desk. I'll do it, she said. You mind if I try and scare the shit out of you? I asked. No, that's fine. Go for it, she gamely said. I went to the kitchen and grabbed an oversized metal kitchen spoon, stalked back into the room as Vilma, and with a mechanical leg limp, I skidded Michelle's desk out of her way, pinned her in the corner, and proceeded to make her cry in fear. You got the part if you want it, Kim said. Yeah, that was great. It was really scary, Michelle agreed. I'd taken a chance and I'd gotten the part. Shooting would last for 4 weeks. Oh, McConaughey.
I've not actually, but looking at this filmography, I wanted to have a look and see how many I'd actually seen. I actually haven't seen quite as many. I've actually seen loads more of the Statham films than I had seen of McConaughey. Yep. But I think for him, it's much more. It's not that he's a celebrity, but I seem to know him more from just more of his personality and his interviews and his demeanor and his the way he is about Hollywood. You know, the way he navigates it, who he is, and what he brings to that, and how he, you know, wrestles with the idea of fame and acting and all this. And I know him more, I think, kind of more intimately that way than I do as say a performer or an actor. Like, you know, I've seen Reign of Fire, I've seen Tropic Thunder, I've seen, you know, 10 days to lose a man in 10 days or whatever it's fucking called. Fuck that
is the new title.
Fucking something.
10 ways to lose a man or fucking something, that'll do.
Yeah, I have a lot of opinions on that film as well, but that's another podcast entirely. Maybe I'll send in my comments maybe when you do that one.
Please do. Letterboxd review, I'll read it out.
Yeah, I'll do it. So yeah, like I can't remember what I was saying, but yes, he is his own kind of, I don't know, personality.
Like he is brand almost.
Yeah, a little bit. Like I know, like The Rock and Ryan Reynolds are very much like, we're cultivating a brand. I am this person. I'm this. I'm going to sell this and that. But I think he does it very naturally and very charismatically. That I think that's why he's done so well in his career, because he is quite an affable guy. He's quite, you know, he's friendly, he's charming, he's, you know, he's good looking. Obviously, it doesn't hurt. And I think that's probably why I kind of just know him, and I haven't seen that many. I did see Ghosts of Girlfriends Past. I'm sure you're looking forward to that one as well, Jack. And a few others here and there, but I'm not. Yeah, I can't say I've seen a lot of his stuff. Again, I've seen True Detective, which I think is a masterpiece. And I'm not a bit. You know me. I'm not a big TV guy, but I think that is just superb storytelling, superb acting. Alexandria Daddario's in that, and she was in the worst Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. Another connection. So yeah. So when you mentioned him, and I hear this story, I went, you know what a fucking nice guy. What a good guy. Like he was so good. He was so was so selfless. He didn't think of himself. He went, I know some fucking great guys. I'll get them to you. They'll do a good job. They'll get the part. Brilliant. And it was only on a second thought. He's like, oh yeah, I could do it. I'm an actor. It's almost like, you know, he's just like that kind of bit of an airhead still. Like there's that side of maybe just still being like a young, you know, like the Dazed and Confused character. He's just a bit like, you know, he's, you know, not quite no, but you know, somewhere a little before that. But yeah, I think it's a wonderful little story. And again, like you said, he's like we've said, they're not ashamed of it. They go, you know, I paid my dues. I was in a genre film. It gave me opportunities. I got to meet people. Got to work with them again. Why the hell not? So yeah, I think that's a lovely little story. And again, it doesn't. It says a lot without saying a lot about him as a person.
Yeah, and I think the thing that links the Staith and McConaughey together is charm. I agree. You know, both good-looking blokes, both very charming on screen and off. But is an affability as a person and an appreciation for what they do. McConaughey just seems to be really happy doing what he does. And yeah, we'll get to the period where it gets a little bit dark and he gets really frustrated by his typecasting. But you know, he covers that in the book. But he talks about how, you know, he found his way through it, and he just found a way to be grateful again. Of like, okay, these aren't the films I want to do, and that will come. But I should just enjoy this position I'm in. I'm privileged. I'm getting a lot of money. I'm, you know, enjoying what I'm doing. And so I think maybe that's why I got drew to him in the end, is that it felt like a natural progression on from the Staith, in that he's almost a Hollywood version of the Staith, in that he just he's charming, he's charismatic, he has good chemistry with people he acts with, and he just is a guy who's grateful for his position in life.
And you were talking about being wanky and pretentious. I don't think he ever has been. Like, I don't think he's never like, I'm going to be, you know, yeah, he's taken on very difficult roles. You know, I thought he was fantastic in Dallas Buyers Club.
Yeah.
Nothing can kill Ron Woodruff in 30 days. You know, I loved that. I loved that film. I thought it was fantastic. Jared Leto is in it, though. There is that. But ignoring that, I think it's a good film. But yeah, I think there is that, and I think there's charm, and again, I think he's open to things. He's open to the experience, and you know, he's got a loving family, and you know, and he's open to experiencing different things, playing different roles, taking risks. Like, this is a risky performance this early on in his career as well. And obviously I know they tried to bury the film, but he now embraces it because it's part of his journey, it's part of his story, and he probably wouldn't be where he is without it. Viggo Mortensen was in the entry before this, playing a very similar character, and maybe he wouldn't be where he is without that role, without the spotlight of because again, the title itself, like, we see it now, we see remake after remake and legacy sequel after legacy sequel, because it's built-in marketing potential. They don't need to spend millions and millions and millions. It will do well on YouTube because people are going to review it. People are going to do podcasts on it. They don't need to worry about that issue, really. They don't spend millions and millions on the marketing to get the word out there. It doesn't need to be based off a book or anything that only a few people have heard of. It's there, and whatever you want to say about the films and the quality of them, I think the one Viggo Mortensen is in is worse than this one, personally. But even that has some moments I quite enjoy, and Ken Forey's in there and some other cool actors. But yeah, this is it, and I'm glad when actors are not pretentious, because that was always in the thing I hated about being in the acting world, was pretension, and people like, oh yeah, this is going to be really important, it's going to say a lot, and I'm like, shut the fuck up, pretend to be a fucking clown over there. That go and do your fucking job. Don't be like, oh yeah, and just all the kind of back patting and shit. And I learned the other week that the Oscars were created as a way to break unions up as well the other day. Okay. Originally, that's what they because they wanted to celebrate certain actors, but they were like, you can't be in the union or you won't get these awards. And that's the reason they do it, which makes absolute sense to me, and kind of why I don't like those kind of award shows and stuff. As enjoyable as they are, and as it's great to celebrate certain people, there is that history to it, that kind of dark history, which is interesting. But I really think that Matthew McConaughey avoids a lot of that pretentious bullshit and trying to be the serious actor. And Carpenter wasn't a fan of that. Look at Kurt Russell. He's never been the quote unquote serious actor, has he? He's always been Kurt Russell. He's done serious roles. He's done fun roles. He's done Disney, but he's never been like, I'm going to do this Oscar bait film. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to challenge myself and do this. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. If you win awards for it, fair enough. It's good. But I get a sense of Matthew McConaughey that as long as he's doing what he's doing, he's all right. He's all right. He's all right.
Very nice. I don't want to let Letterboxd go quite yet, so I have got a couple of reviews to share. Kylo says, this was so much fun. I mainly came from Renee and stayed for Matthew. Matthew McConaughey was hysterical. He was having so much fun in the role. This movie was so cheap and trashy. I was kind of living for it, though.
Yeah.
He's a fan.
Yeah. I can see it.
At the other end of the scale, An Anomaly says, a lot of this is just miserable in the wrong way, complete with a ludicrous new interpretation of the Sawyer family. But McConaughey's unhinged performance is not to be missed. That's it. Short and sweet.
Yeah.
There weren't many in-depth reviews of this movie. You'll be surprised to learn on Letterboxd. It was mostly just, this is shit.
You know what? I understand. I get it. I totally get it. Yeah, I think you're right though. The film fan, the film kind of academic, let's say. I'm not going to use the word you used earlier because I know you hate it. But I think that the people who like that behind the scenes stuff and the what the artist's intention was, I talk about it a lot on my podcast. Where are we at this time when it's being made? What are we saying politically? Where's the industry at? What are they trying to say? I talk about that a lot, and I think this is why I've enjoyed talking about this so much, is because it has all those elements I like talking about. Again, I did Cannibal Holocaust. I didn't enjoy watching that film, really, and many people didn't. Even though I said like don't watch it, and people are like, I'm going to watch this one, Dan. I was like, really? This one out of all the ones I've done, that's the one you want to watch? Okay, enjoy the animal slaughter, go crazy. But yeah, like I think the discussion
because of its place in history, and
exactly. It's there's something interesting about it. Again, the quality of the film and is what it is. But there's a reason we're still talking about it. There's a reason it's still in the zeitgeist to a degree. Is because it is interesting, and the backstory and the behind the scenes of it, and how we get, how do we get to this point? How do we get to this delivery, this execution of this film? And what was the intention of the original idea, and how is it metamorphosed into this?
Yeah, fair. What I will say is we've been speaking for nearly the length of the movie now.
True.
This discussion is a much more enjoyable than the process of watching their film was. Now, I know that's probably equally true for you, but you had company and you were having a good time watching it together and enjoying. For me, your company here, sir, has been much more enjoyable than it was the company of the Slaughter Sawyer family watching the movie.
Yeah. I think I knew what we were going in for, and I kind of indicated what kind of film Lucy was going to watch. And luckily, Scott's away in Dubai doing The Tempest at the moment, so I came over, and she was like, yeah, we'll do whatever, we'll drink, you'll eat, we'll make some food and stuff. And yeah, it was a great experience. Even watching the other film, which I think is worse in some ways, was enjoyable. So yeah, I enjoyed my double dipping and double bill of Matthew McConaughey. But yeah, I think when I first watched this, I didn't enjoy it quite as much on my own, and I did tune out, especially in the first hour and 45 minutes. We've not even talked about some of the characters that killed at the start.
No,
like the random guy just drives into them, and Vilma comes in and he's like, "Oh, you got to help him. He's dead." He's like, "He's dead." No, he's not. He was talking in his sleep. He's dead now.
Just the second car crash in the space of 5 minutes as well.
Yeah, and then
another car hits him earlier on at the crossroads.
Yeah, and then they separate and they all end up at the same house. Also, I hate films where I don't know where the fuck the locations are. The geography.
Yeah, me too.
Like, how do you go down that road and still end up at that house? And how do you go down that road and still end up at the house?
Yeah,
that was annoying. And again, clearly, it's like we've blocked off this one stretch of road, this one house. That's it. We're just doing that. We're just shooting that, and is the same way each time and every time, just from different angles. Not good.
How not good though? Is it complete stonely not good, or still worth catching not good, or actually because McConaughey goes for it and he's unleashed and probably never going to see this kind of performance from him ever again across another 48 movies and a TV show, because I'm going to cover True Detective.
Of course, you have to.
Yeah, where are we at? Completist, worth catching, or classic?
I was thinking about this. Now it's. I think even in McConaughey's, some people will say McConaughey maybe isn't that much of an actor. I think he is. I think he is a good actor, and his filmography, people, is questionable, I think, and in quality as well. And I do think this is the reason you watch this is for McConaughey and him just going like, because he's not really ever played another character quite like this, has he?
Sorry, I thought the impression was about to come in again. How many times can you get the impression in?
But is it for completism? Okay, I think it's worth catching. Purely for McConaughey. I think for any other reason, or Renée Zellweger, if you're looking for a Renée Zellweger film you've never seen. Yeah. I think it's worth it for them because they are, bringing A game. No, I do think they're doing. I think they're the best actors in the film, easily. Yeah. Standouts by a country mile. They are the best things in it. If you want to see a kind of weird, wacky, bizarre, mental film, if you get a few friends around, if you have a few drinks like I did, I think that's the best way to enjoy it and know exactly what you're going in for. It's just going to be absolutely wild and insane, and again will leave your friends speechless. This is the kind of film, even at a party, you could just put this on in the background, and every so often your attention can just be like, has that guy got nipples and bull rings in his stomach? What is going on there? There's just moments where you could just like dip in and out, and you could still kind of enjoy it in a way. But yeah, so I think it's worth catching purely for McConaughey and that performance and that character, because it's the only thing in it that I really, really like. I guess the thing that works out of everything in the film that works is that central villainous performance. I think how much it works is up to you. But I think it's worth catching alone just for a performance you'll probably never see again from him.
Mm-hmm. Totally fair. Well reasoned. Bro, thank you, mate. Thank you, everyone, for listening and partaking in this journey with me through the reconnaissance. That was Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. Next up in a fortnight, I'm joined by Rhea Carrigan to discuss Eminem's appearance as Abe in Herbert Ross's Boys on the Side, for those that are watching along. Until next time, be excellent to each other and make sure you take the time to treat yourself too. I am Jack signing off. Yippee-ki-yay, movie lovers.